He's about 455 yards away. He's going to hit about a 2 iron, I think.
This is the School of Motion podcast. Come for the MoGraph, stay for the puns. I was so excited to talk to this episode's guest. I will admit it, I am an Ariel Costa fan. Personally, I celebrate his entire catalog. If you're unfamiliar with Ariel's work, then go to his site, blinkmybrain.tv, and look at what he does. He designs and animates in this very unique, quirky, cool style that is surprisingly difficult to pull off well. He animates mostly by brute force in After Effects. He's not a very technical animator, and he's done music videos for Green Day, Mastodon, and Led Zeppelin. Seriously. And before that, he moved to the US from Brazil and ended up at Buck for a year. This dude is legit and one of the nicest people you will ever meet also. In this episode, we go into Ariel's past a bit and find out how he ended up finding his unique style, how he got on the radar of gigantic bands, and what the economics look like of music videos. He also drops tons of wisdom about freelancing, balancing paid and unpaid work, and lots more. Seriously, this episode is jam-packed, so get a notepad. Now, at the very end of the episode, Ariel surprised me by saying some very nice things about my book, The Freelance Manifesto. And since that's just about the best testimonial for the book I could have asked for, I'm gonna play that part real quick.
Dude, I got a lot from your book, that's for sure. You know, as a single professional, you have to deal with business. You are your own studio, you know, a one-man studio. And I had no idea how the business worked until I bought your book, dude. And that was amazing. It changed my whole perspective in the industry, for sure. And thank you for that. I've learned so much about the business side, about how to approach a client, and it's working, man. It's really working.
Seriously, my head almost fell off when he told me that. You can find the book on Amazon in Kindle or paperback format. And that's all I got to say about that. All right, let's get to the interview. Ariel, it is amazing to have you on this podcast, man. Thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a great honor.
Well, I'm a big fan of your stuff. I'm just going to get that out of the way. So I want to start, I guess, way at the beginning. How did you get into motion design? And I know that this might be a long story, but that's why we have podcasts, man, because I want to find out, like, how did you end up here?
Okay, actually it was an accident, you know. My intention in the beginning was to be a live action director for commercials, mainly. And later on, I had plans to debut in the movie industry as a great, amazing director.
Of course.
But that never happened because I stumbled across this thing called animation. And as I told you, like I was, I'm graduated in major in media arts, as you guys name here in the United States. And I got this intern job at this production company back in Brazil. And they mainly do VFX. And there I got to introduce with this tool, amazing After Effects thing. And that changed my life. You know, like there at this production company, I learned how to use After Effects cameras and all those funny stuff. And that was the beginning for me.
So what was it about, After Effects and animation that appealed to you in a way that live action and visual effects didn't?
I think the mobility, I was able to create stuff by myself without have to use all those really expensive equipments, like cameras and sound equipment, the crew, stuff like that. And I was able to create my stuff, and I always draw stuff. I have this passion for illustration since I was a kid, and combining those things, kind of movies in a way and illustration, having those graphics and movement for me was something new and something that really got me into this world.
So did you actually study animation anywhere, or like, and learn sort of the principles of animation and learn the principles of design, or did that come when you were kind of already working?
Yeah, I did back in the days, way back in the days, a basic After Effects course. But I've learned a lot watching tutorials like Andrew Kramer. Come on.
Yes.
And at the time, I don't think people know this, like people from the industry nowadays, but I used to have the After Effects Bible, from Trisha and Meyer.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Amazing book for me. Was my great source of inspiration. But mostly I'm self-taught, like by watching all those heroes doing great work out there, and mainly working. Yeah.
Yeah, because like all the things you just mentioned, they're amazing resources to learn After Effects, but that's kind of not enough, because then you have to have good designs to animate. And then, like where did you pick that stuff up?
Mostly watching online, and I have great mentors through my career. Like people that I work with. We have like amazing designers back in Brazil, and I got to work with some of them, and I've learned a lot from them. And yeah, basically, I think working in different places with those amazing people was my school, my real school, design school.
That's awesome, man. And it's probably a better education than a school, because you're working with the best of the best, right?
Absolutely, you're totally right, because you learn to do design for real problems. It's not. Of course, a school has its values, but working in the wild, like at the Wild West, and when you have to deal with clients, the timeline, deadlines, stuff like that, budget. It's a great way for you to learn the right way, because you have to solve problems all day.
I love it. So talk a little bit about what your career was like when you were still in Brazil. How did you get your first gig? And I mean, you worked at a lot of studios, right?
I did, yes. I did because I had these, let's say, a free spirit in a way. I don't think I was born to be staff, but being staff allowed me to learn from great people, and not just design and not just animation wise, but like business side, because most of the people they are in this industry, but they forget this is it's a business. And working with these amazing studios allowed me to get to know more of their business and their craft and a lot of things. And I like this. I like to get to know, okay, how does a studio work and how that studio work, and get the better from every studio and try to apply to my career, in a way. But to be honest, I don't remember what was my first gig. But in Brazil, we don't have like this huge industry. We have amazing solo designers and animators. We have a few studios, and back in the day, we didn't have. We just have Lobo. I don't know if you know them.
Oh yeah,
yeah, they're great. Lobo, I think it's still is the biggest studio in Brazil. And I started to work for companies, but I was not happy because again, agencies in Brazil, they don't understand animation in a good way. And at the time I was, of course, hooked on the motionographer website, and I was watching all those great projects from abroad, and I wanted to do this kind of work. So I decided to open my own studio in 2007, and I founded with a partner this studio called Studio Nitro, and I ran this studio for 4 years. But again, because of the industry and the market that we have in Brazil, I was still not happy, and I saw the problem was not the studios out there in Brazil. It was more the industry that we have in Brazil. So I was not learning anything. I was doing basic stuff, and I had this hungry to do something else, to do something beyond, to take a step forward. So I decided to, okay, let's move forward. So I talked to my wife, and she was super upset with her work as well, and we decided to come over to the United States to learn more about this industry, learn more about animation and motion graphics, and here I am.
So Ariel, so you decided to move from Brazil to the US for work, which, like, to me, that sounds terrifying, and you somehow end up at Buck, which is very high on the top of a lot of people's lists of studios they'd like to work for. So what's the story there? Like, how did you end up in California working for Buck?
Yeah, so basically, I decided to come to Los Angeles because Los Angeles at the time was the mecca of motion graphics, and like PsyUp, a lot of great studios were here, and of course, Buck. And I came here to work mainly for a studio called Roger. It's a great studio with great people. I worked there for about 1 year and a half. And after that, again, they are great people, but I wanted to move forward. I wanted to learn a little bit more design thing. And I felt like Book at the time was the great studio for me to learn, and it was. So at the time I had this friend working at Book, and he told me, okay, there's a spot opening here. So I had this friend at the time working at Buck, and he told me about this spot that they needed an animator and designer to fill a position. And of course, I said, I have a 100%. I'm 100% sure that they're not going to call me, but right. I'm going to apply it anyway because Buck it's a really a name in the industry, and I'll say I have nothing to lose, so let's apply it, and I apply it, and Ryan called me in to talk, and I got surprised, and the reason that they hire me is because I was a kind of jack of all trades at the time, and they needed that because that was a good thing for me to grow as a professional in Brazil, because since we don't have an industry, I had to learn how to do a little bit of everything. So they needed someone like that to fill a position. So they need someone who could art direct, who could direct a project, who could animate, or who could just design or illustration or whatever. And I landed there, and I could say for sure it was the best studio that I ever worked in my whole life. And I've learned in 6 months what I haven't learned in my whole career back in Brazil, for sure, with amazing people, great staff, great bosses. It was great experience for sure.
That sounds amazing. So let me ask you this. You brought something up that it's actually been coming up a lot recently with interviews I've been doing. And that's this idea that the industry seems to be moving towards wanting more of that jack of all trades, or a generalist, I guess is the term. And it's kind of surprising, I guess, to me to hear that Buck was looking for that. I'm guessing this was 2007, 2008. Yeah. So because I would imagine that at a bigger studio like Buck, they'd want you to specialize and have, you're the designer, but you don't open After Effects. You design it because you're awesome at that. And then we'll get the animator who can't really design, but can animate anything. We'll get that person to do the animation. So do you have any idea why they were looking for a generalist instead of a specialist?
I think Buck still has a lot of specialist people working there, but I believe they wanted to solve problems. They wanted to to spread their options, like in style or I don't know for sure to say why Buck wanted that, but I know that industry today they're wanted to have more generalists, let's say. More often, it's to solve problems. I think it's a great way to to have the right people to deal with different styles and I don't know. I would say I think it's easier if you have someone that can deal with problems, in a wider way and solve these problems, than have someone that just can do like I don't know 2D animation or something like that.
Right, and it seems like a good business move too. I mean, you mentioned that's something that a lot of times artists can forget, or they don't like the fact that it's a business.
Yeah.
And having the ability to take a project from start to finish, especially if you're freelance, is invaluable. And you used to kind of be able to get away with just being an animator or just being a designer. And it seems like that's harder and harder. So I just thought that was interesting. So you've worked at a lot of different studios, Lobo and Buck and Roger, and I know you worked at other ones, and now you freelanced for many studios. And I'm curious, like I never freelanced for very many different studios, maybe like 2 or 3. But you've done way more than that. And I'm wondering, like, if what are some of the things you notice about the best studios? Like, what is it about the Bucks and the Rogers that makes them able to produce such cool work?
I would say it's the planning of stuff, organization, and to understanding the project. Let's use Buck for example. The thing that I most love about Buck, and this took me some time to learn from them, it's how to push clients forward. Because usually clients approach at Buck because they are a great studio. But Buck pushes the work forward. They propose like different pitches for clients, and all those different directions, they're like crazy amazing directions, and it's usually things out of the box. And I love like the way that like for example, when we used to have a pitch at Buck, they used to bring everybody to talk about it, and you were able to give an idea for the project, like so. And Buck, they have a huge amount of staff. I think in LA office during my time it was like 50 people.
Wow.
Not just designers, but like in general. I would say like designers was like 10 or something like that. Animators 10 or 15, something like that. And they talk to you, like they want to hear you. And Buck, for example, they have people from all over the world. And bringing these combinations of culture, I think it creates something special for clients. And yeah, I think it's more like a mix, planning, hearing from your staff, and come up with a good approach for the client and push the client forward.
That's really cool. It almost sounds like having a process that you can follow and kind of replicate, project after project. That's a good way to make sure that you're always getting a high level and a good result.
Yeah.
And all that kind of stuff. And studios have kind of figured that out. And I guess that's something that even like freelancers can kind of take away. And you don't have as much ammo. You don't have a room full of amazing designers to pull into a conference room and get pitch ideas from. But maybe there's other ways to do that.
Yeah, totally.
So I want to get into the work that you've been doing lately. If you go to Ariel's website right now, we'll link to it in the show notes. the work, it's all got a very different like feeling and different topics and this and that. But there's kind of this style that you seem to have settled on in the last few years. And it's really unique. Like I know that there's other artists out there that have done stuff similar to this, Adam Swab, for example. Joey here. Sorry to interrupt myself like this, but I need to correct something. I just mentioned Adam Swab. I actually meant Adam Galt. You could see how one might make that mistake. Anyway, Adam Galt's style is similar to Ariel's, not Adam Swab, who is also an incredible artist. Both Adams will be linked in the show notes. That's it. Carry on. But, it's almost at the point where like I could see something and know that you did it. And I'm curious, like, where did that come from? How did you develop that?
Thank you. I think it's one of the reasons that I decided to leave Buck. It's not because Buck it's a bad studio. It's totally the opposite. It's because it was because of me. I wanted to try to find my own voice. I wanted to pursue my own style, something different. So when I decided to leave Buck, instead, I had this plan to create a personal project, and I wanted to create this personal project that, in any way, if you look at that project, you will see Buck in there. So I decided to create a live action, grotesque piece called Scenes. And this is a collage thing. It's a collage thing. It's not designy, graphic, a lot of colors going on. It's pretty much monochromatic. And that piece opened to me a lot of doors. Because of that piece, I got projects for Green Day and stuff like that. And in the past, I think it's part of Brazilian culture. In the past, we had a lot of collage experiences and a lot of projects made in collage. And I kind of have that in my DNA in a way, And I wanted to bring that back. I wanted to make the old school thing cool again. And we're in the industry where everybody, we have like a amazing people doing a lot of cool 2D work, book style kind of thing. And I don't want to do that. I want to do something different. I want to do something that when people saw it, they say, okay, this is it's different. This is not a cell animation. It's a liquid thing, morphing kind of thing. It's different. So I wanted to position myself as a motion designer when the old like an old school motion designer, because back in the days, if you get studios like back in the days, we don't have styles at the time. Like we have projects with 3D cell animation, stop motion. It's way wider, the possibilities of be creative in a project than just doing one style. So I wanted to create that kind of thing. But for some reason, clients kind of like it, the things that I've been doing collage-wise, and they've been hiring me to mainly work on projects that have this specific look, let's per se. So it was a statement in the beginning, but then again, accidentally became my thing in a way.
I love that you said you were trying to sort of make what was old new again, because I think I was having a conversation with, you know what? It was actually a conversation with Noel Honig, we both know. And for the listeners, so Noel teaches our After Effects Kickstart class.
And he does a lot of amazing collage stuff too.
Exactly. And his style is similar to this. And he mentioned you as an inspiration. And I think we both said, like your work kind of reminds me of some of the MK12 stuff, like from, 2002, 2003, because this style was kind of in for a while. There was I think there was this really famous in our industry graphics package for country music television that Eyeball did in those days that was kind of like this. It was collage, a bunch of weird things mashed together, but somehow it all worked. And it definitely reminds me of that, Ariel. And it is unique the way you do it. So my first question, for anyone listening that hasn't seen Ariel's work, you have to see it. I mean, it's really unique and cool, but it's composed of like all of these old timey looking images, these strange photographs of people, and you cut their heads off and you manipulate them and you do all kinds of things. And there's these textures, but like my first question is, where the hell is all this imagery coming from? It's almost like you must have some hard drive just filled with old stuff. Like, where are you getting all the?
I do a lot of researches, and because like working with collage thing, it could be tricky because you are doing real work. So you have to be aware to not be sued by anybody. You have to be aware to not just Google the image and grab whatever image you think it's necessary for the project. You're dealing with copyright things. And I tend to, of course, in order for me to not be arrested, I tend to sometimes I buy images, and I can give you all the links. I don't mind at all to share my resources. It's not about the resources. It's about what you're going to do with them. So I don't mind sharing my resources. I'm going to send you the link, but I usually buy from this cool website, and it's cheap, called Deposit Photos. It's cheap, and for those really old school material, I use common license photos from this Flickr page. So basically, it's stock footage, but they are free because they have no license.
Yeah.
And they are really old, like from 1920s, 1910, like it's from the beginning of the past century. So you're free to use, and it has a lot of great stuff in there. And the good thing about working with collage, it's, in my opinion, is doing the research, because you ended up looking into history in a way, like, because you are doing like this really research, like deep into this research, and you're like browsing all the, like you could see how science fiction began, by just looking those photos, like those early NASA kind of like rocket stuff. It's amazing. It's a really journey.
That sounds really fun. I want to say to everyone listening, the Library of Congress has a big digital collection online, and a lot of it is public domain at this point, because it's, the laws that sort of, when it gets to a certain age, anybody can use it. And that's cool, because that's a source of inspiration that we don't typically hear about. Right now it's kind of like, oh, well, who do you follow on Pinterest? And, what design blogs do you go to? And that's a really interesting thing. Well, I go to the Library of Congress and I look at pictures of old rocket ships.
It's amazing, right?
Yeah.
It's great.
And it gives your work a very unique look. And so the look is one thing, the actual designs and the way you kind of chop up photographs and put them together. But you also animate everything in this kind of lo-fi, cool, funky way. And you did this thing for Motionographer a while back, which was really cool. It's called Step by Step. And basically you just recorded your screen for 2 or 3 hours as you animated something. And then it's up on YouTube, and we'll link to it in the show notes. And it's just put up there with no commentary. It's not a tutorial. You just get to watch Ariel work. And I watched some of it, and what kind of struck me was how you just brute force everything. Like, I was the kind of animator, and it's interesting because we're building a class right now with Sonder Van Dyke, and he is a very clever animator and very, very good at like figuring out a clean technical solution to stuff. But not every animator is like that. And I get the sense that you are not afraid to have a million keyframes in your comps. So I was wondering if you could talk about that a little bit. Like, do you consider yourself more of like a hands-on animator?
Totally. Yeah. I love Sam. I'm totally the opposite of him.
Yeah.
Totally. I'm not a technical guy at all. At all. I've tried to in the beginning, but I'm not this kind of guy. I like to put some keyframes into it. I kind of have you seen that piece, motion designers are masochists or something like that?
Yes, I love that piece.
Dude, I'm kind of like that, you know. I'm also part of plugins, you know, like I love plugins like GPK, Rubber Hose, and stuff like that. I've used in the past. But I believe I can achieve some unique and organic animation if I try to not rig my characters, you know. And like cell animation, we don't have a rig for characters, you know. It's frame by frame, and like I try to create something more unique because I don't know if everybody can tell that. I can tell when people is using some sort of IK plugin by just looking at their animation. But it's hard to say when people animate without using any kind of plugin, you know, like, so I believe I can use more of my time trying to explore my character's action than spending rigging a character, you know. So
yeah, there's kind of like there's almost a jerkiness to a lot of your work, and it feels like old school, almost like stop motion sometimes, the way things kind of move. And I was going to ask you, I mean, is that just an artifact of the way you're animating, or do you like put effects on it and wiggle expressions to make it do that, or is that just it just looks that way because you're actually animating tons and tons and tons and tons of frames?
Yes. No, I usually for project, I animate it by hand, you know, and I use posterized time a lot, like 12 frames per second, to give this steppy, funky kind of motion, you know, to the character. And for some project like for the Green Day one, I wiggle the members, the every part of the character to give this crazy look, you know. And I don't know if you can achieve that kind of a kind of effect using IK plugins. Maybe you can, but because again, I'm not a technical guy, I cannot do that. So I'm not trash talking about those plugins. Again, I love those plugins, but I think I can do things different without using. So
yeah, it gives it a different character, and it kind of makes it more. I mean, it's cool. It's more, I don't know, ownable. You know, I mean, you said that you were trying to find your voice, which is something that every motion designer at some point realizes. Hey, I'm just doing stuff that looks like everybody else's stuff, and how do I find something that's me? And doing, animating, I mean, that's not how most After Effects artists animate, as I'm sure you know. And let me ask you this. This just popped into my head, but I mean, did you ever animate like this at Buck? Because I can imagine that if you had to hand off your After Effects file to another artist, they'd probably want to kill you, right?
I did once, and it was not a good experience.
It didn't go well.
Yeah, it didn't go very well because we have a technical director at Buck, Moses Journey. He's a brilliant. He's just like he's a technical dude. Again, totally the opposite of me, and I've learned so much from him. And he was the guy that had to constantly try to keep me back to earth. You know, like you can do that because other people will try to work with your files. You know, so you have to make people more comfortable. So let's try to keep things consistent. And okay, of course, I'm working for a company, so I have to play their game. So. But I usually feels a little bit tight when I have to do this kind of animation, you know, because sometimes I think about an action, and in order for me to make my character do this action, I'm gonna have to re-rig all the character all over again.
Right.
So yeah, so I think it's speed up it speeds up a little bit the process for me, not having my characters read.
So that brings up another point. A lot of just a lot of the movement and the ideas in your work, it's very quirky, but there's a lot going on, and you actually have pretty complex movements and walk cycles and things like that. And if you're doing it all by hand, I'm sure you're not literally animating every single frame, but you probably have way more keyframes in your timeline than the average sort of After Effects artist would. So do you do a lot of like pre-planning? Do you do animatics? Like, how do you make sure that you're not going to spend all day animating something that with, 700 keyframes in it, and then the client is going to say, oh, actually that one move right there, can you change that? And you're like, well, I can't actually, I'd have to kind of redo it,
Yes, that could be a part of a problem too. I tend to create my comps in a way that it's easy for me to change frames. So I try not to. It's a mess, but it's an organized mess. I know where everything. I know how to find the right frame to the. And this again, this is a system that I don't think works very well working in a group, but it works well working as a solo guy because I don't have to handle my project to someone else to do their, to tweak my frame. So basically what it is I know where everything is. And I can go back and tweak that specific frame that the client wants me to change. And sometimes if it's too crazy, I can break the comp and create like a pre-comp of just the part that the client wants me to change and reanimate. But I tend to plan the shots before I start the animation. But I ended up like having a different animation that I plan usually.
Well, yeah, because in traditional animation, you've got kind of two ways of animating. You've got pose to pose, where you sort of figure out the shot, figure out the timing, and then you've got straight ahead.
Yes.
And the way your animation looks, it feels straight ahead. It feels like you start animating and you just kind of see where it goes. Yeah. Which is how most motion designers animate in After Effects, actually. So that's normal, but it's easier to manage when you have less stuff. But you brought up an interesting point, Ariel, which is that the way that you're working and the way your comps are organized and the way you're animating is not efficient for, a 50-person animation studio to have everyone be doing that, but you're not a 50-person animation studio. So it's okay. It's actually okay that your comps are like that.
I'm aware of that, and that's why, again, I'm telling, like, using those kind of plugins, it's really important. But if I don't have to use, if I can create my own stuff, okay, I can do that because it's just me working on this project and I don't have to handle my project to the client, or they're not going to tweak anything like that. And I'm aware of if clients want me to, I want you to create this project for me, but I want the After Effects file. I'm going to talk to the client and say, okay, we have two options here. I can do my way and you can tweak on your end, and I can do in the industry way. And it might not have this DNA that I always wanted to put in this project, but in the end, you're going to have the project so you can tweak by yourself. And I had experiences already, like for the New York Times piece, I have to hire help. So I have this guy, Alexander Sarhovisk. I probably am saying his last name wrong, but he's another Brazilian guy, and he's a super talented character animation in After Effects. But the way that he works is creating rigs, and it's fine by me, because I trust him and I know that his animation it has some personality. And for those key moments that I need the animation to have a little bit more of craziness, or to be more out there, I can do it, in a way that we don't need the rig. But I believe there's a perfect world where these two techniques can combine in a good way.
Yeah, and it sounds like in that case you're acting almost as an animation director, and
Yeah.
you can sort of direct that animator to, use the tools and the techniques that they're comfortable with, but however you do it, make it look like this.
No, yeah, he might. I don't know. Again, I don't know. To be honest, I have some limitations with the technical stuff. There might be some guy out there or some really talented girl out there that can create this amazing rig in an easy way. Then I don't know, we can animate in a really organic way. I couldn't find yet, but I believe if there's some person out there, I would love to meet this person, and please teach me, how to do these things, how to be good at the rigor, because like I kind of don't understand very well the process, and I think it's more like my weakness in this profession to not be too technical, because I think pretty sure I could get some stuff a little faster and than I can get right now.
Yeah, but that would almost require, an Ariel Costa plugin or something. It would be so specific to the way you animate. So I wanted, so you mentioned like for bigger projects, you got to bring on help and try to still maintain your style. So let's talk about some of these big projects that you have on your reel. Some pretty crazy names. Why don't we start with a little band called Led Zeppelin?
Oh, yeah.
That asked you to do a video for them. So can you just tell us that story? Like, how did that come about? What was that for?
Yeah, that was amazing. It was a highlight of my career, that's for sure. But I had a blast previously working with another great band called Green Day. And because of this particular work that I did with them, a really nice guy inside Warner Records and Warner Music passed my name along to the guy that was in charge of Led Zeppelin. And the guy talked to me and I say, do you want to make I love what you did with Green Day. Do you want to make a video music for Led Zeppelin? And I thought to myself, what? I thought they broke up. I didn't talk. I told to the guy, are they getting back together? And I say, no, we're releasing this promotional campaign for them. They are releasing a collection of the best of the best in Blu-ray. This special DVD, CD. It's a pack. And we want to create this music video for this song. And this music video, it's going to be the lead card of this campaign. And I said, I'm a huge fan of Led Zeppelin. Of course, I'm interested. I didn't ask about budget or anything like that. I just said yes. I just said yes because I think that was a one-time opportunity in life, And okay, and the guy told me, okay, so you have 2 weeks and a half to 3 weeks to do it. Can you do it? And I say, okay, I can do it. But it was amazing. It was like to be able to pull it out, and it was great. It was amazing.
So the Green Day video actually came before Led Zeppelin. So let's kind of like rewind a minute and go back to that, because that one, and I'm imagining that probably came about because of Sins, your short film, and it kind of has a similar look.
Yeah.
So how did that video sort of fall into your lap?
Okay, so again, it was because of Sins. Sins. So I was contacted. I was contacted by this guy again, Devin Sarno from Warner Music. He contacted me and said, "Okay, I have this project for a great band, Red Hot Chili Peppers." And I said, "Wow, me, guy, and they said, do you want to make a music video for Red Hot Chili Peppers? And I say, oh, of course I want to, And this is, I don't think I ever told this in public, but the Green Day music video supposed to be Red Hot Chili Peppers music video.
Oh.
And I don't think I ever told anybody about that. So I work in this music video for about 3 weeks for Red Hot Chili Peppers, and I was like 70% done. And then Devin called me and said, I think the band wants to go live action on this one. And I said, I felt like shit. Oh, sorry. I don't know. Can I curse?
Oh, yes, you can.
Sorry. And I felt like shit because, I put my whole career in the game for this, and I was super bummed. I was super, okay, they didn't like my work. My work is shitty. I don't do nothing right. I was blaming myself. And he said, no, it's nothing. It's nothing about your work. They love your work, but they think for this specific song, their manager talked them to do live action or something like that. I don't really remember what was the reason, but it was something like that. And he said, don't worry, we're gonna pay you for the work you put into this, but let's talk, okay? And I said, okay, I don't think I'm ever going to talk to this guy again because I don't think he's going to talk to me again. And a month passed, and I received a mail from him. Do you want to use that approach for Green Day? Because Green Day is going to release an album in August. I think it was August at the time. And I said, okay, of course, I kind of felt alive again, because they said, okay, if this guy approaches me back, I don't think I suck that much. And he said, okay, but you have to put together a pitch for them, and we can see if they like it, we can move forward. And I put a pitch together. I used some of the art directions that I used for the Red Hot Chili Peppers one. I redesigned all the characters to become Green Day members of the band. I sent to them. They sent me the okay, and so I had 2 weeks and a half to pull everything together and to recreate a music video for the Green Day. And because of that, I got the Led Zeppelin.
So let's talk about the Green Day video. It's just really cool. Like, everyone listening to this, you have to go watch it. It's very unique looking, and it really goes with the song. And it's kind of like it's an interesting blend of like a lyric video, and a real music video. Was that something the band wanted? They wanted the lyrics on screen.
Yeah, actually, it is meant to be a lyric video more than a video music for itself. For this one, but they wanted to create a different kind of lyric video. It's more like a video music kind of thing. And kudos to them, because they gave me a lot of liberty to create the things on my way. The only thing that they asked me was to make the Green Day logo in the beginning bigger. Like, it's clients kind of, like it's the most cheesy client's request, make the logo bigger.
That is amazing.
And it's, but that was the only thing, like they were super supportive. They trusted my work. And it was super fun.
So you had to animate. I'm looking right now. The video is 3.5 minutes long.
Yes.
And there's a million little pieces to it. And it's all hand animated in your kind of quirky style. Yes. How the heck did you do that in 2.5 weeks and get it like approved, and all that?
It was insane. It was insane. The good thing about being in this market for a very long time, because, I'm 34. I've been working with motion graphics and animation for a while now. And I kind of understand the game. I understand my limitations, and I understand what I can put into the project and what I cannot put into the project. So I kind of come up with a game plan. And the idea for me was to create not a storytelling. It's more like if you watch it, you're gonna see that it's a bunch of different gifs. Like every single shot, it's a different gif. So not having this specific storytelling or I have to follow a rule here. It eliminates a problem for me. So this is more like a catharsis kind of project. There's no storyboard. There's no like sketches. It's more like sit down, animate, and bleed. Basically that was it.
Sit down, animate, and bleed.
That's it.
That should be a poster, man. That is really that sums it up. And I mean, it's amazing what you pulled off. And so let's talk about the last video that you just recently finished for the rock band Mastodon.
Oh, amazing, guys. Yes.
Oh my gosh. So I'm imagining it was kind of a similar thing. The label contacted you, saw what you've done and said, can you do this for us? But this one, there's a little bit more of a narrative to it. Yes. There's almost like a little storyline. So can you talk about what was different about this one?
Yeah, I had more time actually to do this project. The budget was better than the other one. I think it's more it was a little bit more comfortable, for me.
Yeah.
To just sit down and less bleeding. It's more joy.
Right.
But it was super fun. It was super fun. Brand, the main vocal and the drummer, he's the guy in charge to curate the artistic side of the band. So he's in talks he's the guy who talks to people who does like the posters and t-shirts, video music, stuff like that. And I talked to him on the phone. He said he loved the collage piece again. He wanted to do something like that. Mastodon have the history to create these funny music videos. They don't take themselves too serious on their videos, which I think it's amazing, and because it creates for them this personality, and they want me to create something fun for them. And I say, of course, I'm a big Mastodon fan. I love their music. I wanted to create something special for them. So, and I was really into this science fiction phase in a way. I still have the plan. I have the plan to create like this animation short film in science fiction way, all collage stuff mixed with cell animation. And I had that in mind when they approached me. And I said, okay, I'm going to try to create something. And I think the lyrics, the robot stuff, and it came to me like super clear that I had to do some science fiction for them. So, and it was super fun.
How much input do you typically get from bands on this? Because I would imagine that, bands are musicians, they're artists.
Yes.
And so they probably have, I would hope, like a little bit more of a respect for what it is that you're doing and putting in. So like when you're working with Brand, the drummer, who's amazing drummer, by the way, if anyone is a drummer, go check him out. But like, what kind of notes does a drummer give you? Like, was he telling you, oh, that composition's not working? Was he giving you like art direction or just like, yeah, that's cool, keep doing that?
No, yeah, totally. He trusted my work 100%. The idea for this music video was to create something not just in a technical way, old school, but in a filming way, old school. So I tried to create like this silence kind of cinema, where we have the support of phrases to explain what the characters are saying. And most of the notes that the band gave to me was to let's not, because they put a lot of swear curses in the beginning, and they asked me to make more kids friendly. in a way. They didn't use these words, but it's more like, let's make this a little bit more. We don't have to curse that much,
Right.
Let's just. But I totally understand that, and like just changing little bits here and there, but nothing major, nothing that changed the whole aspect of the final project. But working with Led Zeppelin was tough. I think that project was really tough because Jimmy Page and Robert Plant, they didn't break the band in a very good terms.
Right.
So, and they have this ownership of the band, and they wanted a specific and different things for the music video. So get them to agree in one thing was hard. But for the other bands, like it was like the most funniest client that I ever had, for sure.
So for Led Zeppelin, was there just more and more revisions until you could sort of, like get it to work?
Yeah, more. Yes, it was tough.
Yeah. Well, the Mastodon video, and I mean, frankly, all of these, it almost sounds like, a dream gig for, a lot of people get into motion design because of music videos, and this idea that you can take music, which is something I'm super passionate about, and then something I'm also passionate about, animation, and you can combine them. And now the missing piece there is, can you make a living doing that? So I want to ask you about sort of the business side of doing these videos. So we've had actually on the podcast a friend of mine, Mike Pecci, and his business partner Ian McFarlane. They've directed music videos for a lot of metal bands, and some of the big ones like Fear Factory and Killswitch Engage. And they've told me the budgets are not very big.
No.
So in the live action world, you definitely don't shoot music videos for the money. That's just crazy. But how does it work in the animation world? Is it actually possible to get your day rate on these types of things, or are there different reasons to do it?
It depends on the project. I think I would say. For Mastodon, for example, I would say I had a pretty comfortable budget to do the whole thing. But for the other ones, I didn't do much for the budget. I did it for my love, for the animation world and for the exposure. I would say if you were an individual like me, you can afford yourself doing some video musics for sure, like, because you use, like, for example, like for the Green Day, for example, I used 2 weeks and a half of my month to do this music video, but the other 2.5 weeks I did like a really not at all fun project to pay the bills,
Yeah.
But that's because I'm a solo guy. I don't think a studio, for example, could live out of doing just music videos, And I don't do music videos very often, Like I did Led Zeppelin and Green Day in 2015, and now I did this one for Mastodon because they're a great band and I love them so much. But I don't do video musics very, very often, and I don't think I could live out of just by doing music videos.
Right. Well, I want to point out that you used a dirty word earlier, and that word is exposure. So I wanted to ask you about that because, I personally, I think it's fine to do work for exposure. But, there's kind of this knee-jerk reaction sometimes with artists. Even hearing that word, it kind of makes you cringe because you associate it with clients asking you to do crappy jobs for crappy money for exposure. But like for something like this, would you say that exposure was actually worth the bleeding that you that you did?
Yeah, no, that's for sure. I can't complain. And clients. I still today I receive emails from bands that want me to do their video music for exposure, and I say no, but not because. But I don't think it's it's worth it anymore. Like, of course, if it's a band that interests me, if it's something that I can, put together my passion for design animation and the passion for their music, it's something that I'm 100% going to do it. But and as a designer in this industry, you're going to have a lot of requests, a lot of inquiries of people asking you to do projects for free or with this absurd of a budget. And it's up to you to say no or okay, I can do it. Like, but for me, I said yes, and it was a blast for sure.
Yeah, and the Green Day video, I think when I checked the other day, it had like 19 million views or something like that. So I mean, if you target, that actually is exposure. That's actually legitimate exposure.
I received emails talking about the Green Day project, and people approached me to do projects with that kind of look. So for me, was a huge display, and I totally. Sometimes you're gonna have to if you're working in this industry, sometimes working in a projects like this worth better than 1,000 of reels, and this kind of project, it's amazing because it was some sort of a personal project because they gave me a lot of creativity to do whatever I want, and I put all my effort. I said bleeding in the beginning because the timeline is super tight, but I did with a truly passion.
Yeah,
and I believe it paid off. And for sure, it was a huge, and it still is a huge display for me.
Yeah, that's, to be honest, one of the things that, I mean, I've kind of lost count of what podcast we're on right now, but I've recorded a lot of these, and there's a lot of other ones we've done for classes. I mean, I've talked with a lot of motion designers, over the past couple of years, and that is something that really surprised me. This idea of doing these personal projects or doing projects for no money, and like if you really put a lot of work and love into it, it almost always turns into client work. A client wants that. Spotify wants it or something like that, right?
Yeah, totally.
And I don't know, I guess that was kind of counterintuitive to me because I thought, how do these clients aren't getting on Motionographer, are they? How the hell are they going to see this stuff? So when you do a music video, like when you did the Green Day video, did you promote it? How did you get people to know that it was you that did it?
This guy from Warner, he was kind enough to link my website on their Green Day YouTube description, and I'm super thankful for that. But and we have like a lot of creative people that work for the industry, and they're always searching for new people to collaborate. And those people, they tend to browse more on websites like Motionographer, Stash, and other creative sites out there. So we have a lot of people in this music industry, and that they kind of they're fishing for new talents, So,
yeah. Well, it's cool that all of that hard work, paid off, starting with Sins, which you just did by yourself for free. And then that got you the Green Day opportunity. I mean, it's crazy how it's kind of snowballed. And so now I'm imagining you must have plenty of opportunities to do cool stuff. And right before we started recording, you told me you just finished up a project that's going to be released shortly. So I'm wondering if you can talk a little bit about that.
Yes, and this is I think it's such a special project for me. It's last year I had this amazing opportunity to work with this Academy Award winner director called Morgan Neville. He's a great guy, great staff, and he directed and just finished this documentary about Mr. Rogers. I was born in Brazil, so my childhood wasn't based on Mr. Rogers. So I didn't have this affection that people have for him in here in the United States.
Yep.
But when I met him, when I sat with Morgan and he explained the story, he showed me some footage, and I did some researches to see, okay, who is this Mr. Rogers? And I've learned that this guy was one of the most beautiful human beings in the world. Like he was like a huge presence here for kids, and the way that he spoke to kids about real problems was amazing. I wish I could have this kind of conversation with someone when I was kid. Because Mr. Roger used to talk about really difficult themes with kids, like divorce, uh, uh, sickness, the loss of a dear family, or like a family member or something like that. And the way that he talked to kids, it's in such a beautiful and respectful way. And I've learned how to appreciate this human being. And like when he invited me to be part of this project, I didn't think it was that special. But when I learned, because I got to Animate, they kind of, I'm not going to spoil anything here, but it's a documentary. It's going to talk about his life, and they're going to approach his childhood. And I was invited to create this ludic animation world for when we talk about his childhood. And it was amazing. It was amazing. For me, it was great. So it's going to be on theaters in June, on select theaters, I think, sorry, on June 8th. And soon it's going to be out there for everybody to see it. But this is such an amazing project, not just for the animation part, but for the whole thing. It was amazing.
It sounds really amazing, and I'm assuming that after it's in the theater, Netflix or Amazon, someone will pick it up, and everyone will be able to watch it. If it's out by the time this interview airs, we will link to it. But if not, look out for it. And so I want to ask you about you're in a pretty. It sounds like you're in a pretty awesome place, Ariel, because you're freelance. And I loved at the beginning of this conversation, you kind of offhand, you said, I don't think I'm built for staff.
Yes.
And I thought that was kind of interesting. So you're freelance, and you've put in the bleeding to get work out there that's got you other work, that's now got you this amazing Mr. Rogers documentary. And so I'm wondering, do you see yourself just kind of staying solo? Would you ever start your own studio? Do you have any sort of idea of what your plans look like?
You know what? This is the kind of question that I've been asking myself for the last couple of years. I don't know. I wish I could have the answer, to be honest with you, but I'm happy as a solo, but sometimes I want to push things forward, as I always wanted to be, so having my own studio is not something it's not an idea that I disagree. It's something that I keep cooking in my mind. I'm pretty sure this is something that will come in the future, but I don't know when, because I can't imagine myself like in the 50s, sitting here animating stuff, I just want to have something more solid, an idea more concrete, something more an asset, let's say, something like that.
Yeah. Well, I guess that kind of leads me to my last question for you. I mean, you've got a family now too. And you're 34, which is young, but in MoGraph years, it's kind of old, right?
I'm old. I'm aware of that.
Yeah. And so how has, having, you have a son and you have a wife and you seem like a family guy. How has that shifted your approach to work and your career and stuff?
That's one good thing about being a freelancer and about be able to because of the Green Day project again, it was an investment for me. Sometimes nowadays I tend to go less often to studios. It's been, I would say, a year and a half, almost 2 years that I stepped my foot into a studio, and being working remotely and working from home allows me to be close to my family, and that's amazing. I love to have lunch with my son. I love to have lunch with my wife. My son is going to school now, but I love to go to pick him up at school, and being close to him, being close to my wife and my son. And I think that's the most valuable thing for me. And I think that's the most uh, uh, important achievement that I could have in my career. So yeah, I love working from home.
Well, dude, that is beautiful. And, congratulations for everything you've achieved. And I know you're just getting started too. 34 is the new 24 is my opinion. In my case, 37 is the new 27.
Perfect.
So, yeah, but dude, I want to say thank you for coming on and just sharing your story and your knowledge and your wisdom. And I think everyone's going to get a lot out of this episode.
Dude, I got a lot from your book. That's for sure. I meant to tell you that sooner, but sorry, man, if I left for the end session. But as a single professional, you have to deal with business. You are your own studio, a one-man studio. And I had no idea how the business worked until I bought your book, dude. And that was amazing. It changed my whole perspective in the industry, for sure. And thank you for that.
For the love of God, go to blinkmybrain.tv to check out Ariel's work. It's amazing. And frankly, I think he's an excellent example of the modern motion designer. He's balancing different types of work to suit different purposes in his life. And he's doing it in a way that's getting him a ton of attention and a lot of cool opportunities. I hope this episode inspired you. I hope you learned a ton. And I hope that you are now an Ariel Costa fan. Until next time.